Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel where I flip furniture because I need a new truck. This is the first of two pieces I'll be doing in this video, and while they are in relatively good condition, there are lots of surface scratches, and I do always love to take the top down to bare wood and restain it on about 95% of my pieces. So that's what we're going to be doing first. I'm taking this citrus stripper gel. That sounds really disgusting when you put it on. And I'm just going to wipe it all over and get full coverage over the entire top of the piece. We are absolutely at the bottom of the barrel with this citrus stripper, but we are going to bang out every ounce because I'm a chip. I'm going to wrap this up in plastic nice and tight and let this stripper cook for, well, I meant to only leave it on there for 45 minutes, but I'm pretty sure I left it on overnight. But it was fine because it was wrapped in plastic. When you wrap it up in plastic, it's not going to dry out. It's going to stay and cook, work its magic, and lift the finish off of this piece. Always make sure to give your edges a little bit of extra space so that you can wrap it up and around and not let any air up inside. I do not recommend leaving any kind of stripper on overnight, whether it's wrapped in plastic or not. This was not my intention. I just forgot. I remembered 9 things out of 10. This was the 10th one. I'm using what I lovingly refer to as my big scraper. It's a little bendy, and I'm really having to use some elbow grease because this has been sitting on so long. I like this tool because it covers a lot of ground quickly, but you could also use a carbide scraper or a 5-in-1 tool, and either of those would work just as well. So I've taken an 80 grit sandpaper on my rotary sander, and I'm just going to wipe away the rest of all of this. It was a little more difficult than it needed to be because I left it on so long, but that was my bad. As you can see, we've got a little bit of a boo-boo here. I'm using Gorilla Wood Glue to be specific, and I'm using a little razor, scraper, whatever you want to call it, to shove that up in there. You want to get as much, whatever you want to glue down needs to be covered in glue. I have used a popsicle stick, a razor, my fingernail, a screwdriver, a toothpick to maneuver glue up into cracks and crevices in order to get as much glue up there as possible. And then once you wipe off the excess glue, you can cover it with painter's tape. You always want to wipe off the excess glue because if that glue dries, it doesn't like to be sanded off. It will get gummy and gross. So it's just better to go ahead and wipe it off when it's wet. Cover it with painter's tape, and I don't know why I could not find a spare board at this point in time. Normally I would put a spare board on it and then clamp that down. The best thing I could find was a hammer. As I'm taking off the hardware, I'm noticing all of these surface scratches are a little deeper than I want them to be, so I'm gonna have to come back here in a little bit after all of the hardware is removed with my palm sander. It's a little more gentle than a rotary sander, and I can control where I'm at a little bit more. I don't want to take off a whole lot of this finish, but as you can see in this view right here, there are a ton of scratches on this thing. Well, because I did not use a board and clamp this down the way I should have, it dried lumpy. So now I'm having to sand it down. I should have just done it the right way in the beginning.
Well, it's cold as and I don't want to do this.
Yes, I do realize there is plastic that comes pre-taped, and I wish I had some on me right now. I am going to invest in some, and I will link it in the description below. But as of right now, I'm working with the tools that I have, and that's plastic and painter's tape. There's also painter's tape that is thicker than what I'm using. I will invest in that and also list it below.
The goal is to secure it enough that when I spray it, it doesn't come flying off. Because that is not a good time. I know it sounds like it might be, but it's so not a good time.
To be truly successful at spraying paint, you gotta get that neck. You also need to go in thin coats so your paint does not run. So don't worry about full coverage on that first coat. These areas that I sanded beforehand, I forgot to clear coat before I painted, so they bled through, and I'm going to clear coat them shut before I paint on the second coat. And here we have hardware. One trick I use and will put in every single one of my videos for you ladies is put some petroleum jelly on your hands before you put your gloves on if you're using an oil-based product. Oil reactivates oil, therefore if you have an oil-based product on your hands like petroleum jelly, this stain is not going to stick to you when it comes up on your wrists or you get it up in your fingernails or on your face and neck and wherever else you get it. I mean, wherever you think you're going to get it, put petroleum jelly there and you will be able to remove it with a paper towel. Now I know this looks scary and it scared me too. There was a knob that came off of my sprayer at some point and I didn't notice it. This is an old sprayer and it's really time for me to get a new one. But that knob came off, which meant that the clear coat came out way too thick, but it does dry clear. My go-to is polyurethane when using a dark stain like this. I'll generally do about 2 or 3 coats, sanding in between each one using a 220 grit block.
Because you're using such a light Because you're using such a high grit sandpaper, it is not going to take away from the finish or sand back down to bare wood or anything. It's just going to knock those crazy fibers down. Lint-free cloth to wipe down.
And here's the final look. I chose a matte finish instead of my normal go-to satin because I wanted to change it up a little bit. I like it, I think. What do you guys think? Matte or shiny?